Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SCRC's Let's Talk Caregiving. I'm your host, Roberto Velasquez, President and CEO of SCRC. And I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Marta Rañón, our Executive Vice President.
Hey, Roberto.
Hey, Marta. Today's special guest is Kim Gallo, the Director of Aging and Independent Services in the County of San Diego's Health and Human Service Agency. Kim has worked for the county since 1999, 22 years in various roles, including as the Executive Director of the First Five San Diego, HHSA's Group HR Director, and Director of Regional Operations for East and North Central regions in the County of San Diego. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Roberto and Martha, for having me here today.
You're welcome, and it's our pleasure. We're so thrilled to have you join us today as we want to talk about not only caregivers, but also about National Family Caregivers Month, a very special month that has been dedicated to recognize and honor family caregivers across the country. And it's also a month to help raise awareness of caregiver issues, educate communities, and increase support for caregivers.
You know, Roberto, I am so glad that we are talking about this month. You know, I was a family caregiver, as you know, and I know you were as well at some point. And, you know, it's interesting to have a whole month that raises awareness of the plight of the caregiver, because it's an ongoing role that caregivers are in. And it's really, you know, you're the last person that people think about, right? The caregiver is usually the person that you are caring for that has all the support and attention. But I am so glad that we have Kim here, because I know the County of San Diego has done so much to incorporate how to support the family caregiver, how to kind of walk hand in hand as they maneuver the whole process of getting resources. You know, where do you start? Where do you begin? How do you begin accessing some of these community resources? So, Kim, I don't know what you want to share with us as we celebrate caregivers everywhere. I'm sure there is a lot that the county is doing, and I'm so looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Martha. I think we're so fortunate here in San Diego that we have so many wonderful providers, such as your organization, that are really out there serving the community, as well as the County of San Diego, who also has our in-home support services program, which is for low-income residents. But, you know, during this time, I just really want to say thank you to all of the caregivers out there, and really start with, you know, we know how stressful it can be. Caregiver stress is real. There's not only the economic component to that, but there's the emotional and the physical, and really just the opportunity that so many people need for some respite care. Because taking care of a loved one can be hard. So I think we're very lucky here. We have many programs in San Diego, and if individuals are looking for, you know, a caregiver, or they're looking for resources, they can always call our AIS call center if they're not sure where to go to, and maybe be linked with services in the community. And that number is 1-800-339-4661.
Kim, thank you for sharing that. I know Southern Caregiver Resource Center has been a longtime partner with the County of San Diego. We've been the contractor for the Family Caregiver Support Program and the Family Caregiver Support Program for older adults of Alzheimer's and related disorders pretty much since 2002. And, you know, one of the great things that we have always been able to do is really partner with the county, with AIS, and share with the community all the resources and services that are there to help them. I think our county is probably the best county in the country when it comes to age-friendly, dementia-friendly communities. And I know that's been a big theme over the last 10 years for the County of San Diego, to really kind of partner with all these different agencies here locally under the same, you know, goal of becoming this dementia and age-friendly community. There's not a lot of places like ours in the country, and I attribute that to the leadership over at the county with AIS, and starting with AIS, but HHSA as well.
Well, thank you so much for mentioning that. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, we have over 100,000 San Diegans age 55 and older who are living with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementias, which, can include memory loss, confusion, paranoia, and behavioral issues that can greatly increase caregiver stress and anxiety. Personally, my grandmother had Alzheimer's for many years. And I know that, for the years that she lived in my parents' home, it was very challenging to be a caregiver. And ultimately, towards the end of her life, as things seriously diminished, we just saw the toll that it took on the entire family. So I'm really proud of what we have here in San Diego to really bring light to how many people are taking care of somebody who may have Alzheimer's or a related dementia. We have many programs in San Diego. One is the Take Me Home program, which is a regional photo-based information system hosted by the Sheriff Department so that all law enforcement can access, these photos in case there's wandering or a lost senior that is out there on the street in order to bring them home safely. Because it's, it's very frustrating and very scary when that situation comes up. So Aging and Independent Services supports those individuals and their caregivers and families, through a variety of either caregiving programs, also respite care, which we're so grateful to have you guys as a partner in this work.
Right.
We can't do it alone. And so really having, contractors such as yourself that are able to provide this respite, some support groups, and really allow individuals to take a break so that they are refreshed and can continue on this flight. Some people are reluctant to ask for help as well. So thank you.
I am so glad as I'm sitting here listening to Kim, I was thinking about when I was a caregiver, and one of the models or one of the sayings that we have here is that you don't have to do caregiving alone. Caregivers often feel so alone and so really overwhelmed by the need to do all of this for their loved ones, but not know where to begin. And what I'm hearing from Kim is that there's really this network of care. And that's what we always try to create for our clients or our caregivers, create a network of support, a network of care, because every caregiving situation is different. The needs of the people that we are caring for are very vast and different, but yet it's still a collective of how do I do this? Where do I go? What do you think about that, Roberto?
Well, I'll tell you, I love numbers, I love studies, I love research, but one of the things that always pops up in my mind is that studies do show that coordinated support services can reduce caregiver depression, anxiety, and stress, and enable them to provide care longer and helping avoid or delay institutionalization for their family members that they're caring for. And what I find really challenging, though, for many family caregivers is to identify as a family caregiver, to identify that you are a caregiver. And that's why we do so much education and so much outreach through SCRC and in partnership with AIS, because we want people to see a quote or see an image and say, oh my gosh, that's me, and connect to the services. Because again, so much of us are, especially when we're caregivers and I was a caregiver for a period of time, we're so in the weeds that we don't know how to get help, or we don't think that there's help. And when there's help, you think it's going to be in a stack or a gigantic binder that you have to read with all these legal documents and requirements. And you just say, forget it, I'll handle it myself. But we know that with help, things can get better. One thing that you mentioned, Kim, is the need for this support and the networks that we have. Last year, SCRC, through all our funding sources, mind you, not just the ones through the county, but through some of the other funding sources, we provided over 57,000 hours of respite in the community. This is during a pandemic. And one of the things that we found out during this time, during this now 2 years of a pandemic, is that families are really desperate for help. That this pandemic has created higher levels of isolation, higher levels of anxiety, higher levels of depression, because there's so much limitation to what they can and cannot do. And they're also afraid to endanger their loved one by sending them or taking them out into the community. So the programs that we provide through SCRC are so important. And a big chunk of that funding came through the contracts that we have with AIS through the Family Caregiver Support Program. So I want to thank again the county for that contract, because we were able to provide an enormous amount of hours, in fact, a record-breaking number of hours in 1 year.
That's great.
Yes, it's just amazing how people do get connected, because it comes from anywhere. You know, it could come from talking to their physician. It could come from just talking to a friend who they didn't even know they were caregivers. I was talking to one this morning, and she was telling me that she didn't know what to do anymore, and she was really having a real difficult time. And a friend told her, why don't you just call SCRC? And she reluctantly did a couple of years ago. And then she got connected. She reluctantly did it because she thought she could do it herself. But then she realized she couldn't. And she got connected and had just a really good experience and sent us a letter thanking us for that help.
I feel like you're talking about me, Roberto, because when I was a caregiver, I didn't realize that I was a caregiver. And I just thought, well, I'm just caring for this individual as a family member, and I love her, and she needs help, and she's elderly, and I'm gonna help her. But that's the ticket, right? That's the key, because as I thought that I could do it all, right? That I could just pick up a brochure and go online and make a phone call. It's really that emotional aspect of caregiving that is so draining for a caregiver. I know for me, I was trying to work full time. I was starting a family. I was caregiving full time. Forget the pets, forget the house, forget the spouse. It's really, it takes so much emotionally. And Kim, I'm curious to hear from you how this whole aspect of mental health services and support for the family caregiver from the perspective of the county. I know you're doing a lot to also support in that.
One is always, kind of first accepting that really you are in that role as the caregiver. Sometimes people don't realize, as you mentioned, that they actually are the primary caregiver. And although they may feel a little overwhelmed by that, there's also a sense of pride of, I'm the one that's taking care of this individual. And we all know that you can't, fill an empty cup, right? You have to take care of yourself as well as others. And so I think it's a tough balance and responsibility in life, no matter who you are. So many of our caregivers work, they have children, they may have aging parents. So we refer to those caregivers as kind of sandwich generation caregivers, where they're working full-time or part-time, and then they're caregiving, which requires a lot of juggling. So I have to tell people, as a caregiver, think about all those things that you may be doing just in a single day, and to help organize your day, make a list, provide clarification, and ask for help. Sometimes other family members, I come from a large family where we would try and share, time, and each of us would take on a specific role, but that's not always the situation, as people may live in other towns or parts of the country. And so really, put into perspective of what you're doing, and that way you can see if you don't have family help, that maybe you can get some community-based services or others so that you can get a little bit of break. So I think, again, just maybe recognizing your role. And then also, if you aren't sure, there are organizations such as the Caregiver Coalition of San Diego. And we have a caregiver handbook where, we kind of go over different services that are available, and it's in various languages on the Caregiver Coalition website. So I think really it's just to look to see what resources are out there to help you on this journey as a caregiver.
Yeah, it's so important. You mentioned taking care of yourself. And one of the things that we do at SCRC, and it's important, and other organizations have done some of this as well, but one of the things that we really focus on is trying to not only teach the caregiver how to manage the situation that they're in, but how to take care of themselves. We just had a self-care challenge last month for 10 days, and it was fantastic. And people sent in what they were doing with the tips that we were providing them, and they would post some of it online and so forth. But all our courses, in fact, one of our programs that we offer countywide, and we've been doing this since 2009, is our REACH program, which is Resources to Enhance Alzheimer's Caregiver Health, which is an evidence-based program. And in that program that we designed in 2009, and it's been supported by HHSA through BHS funding, that program really focuses on teaching family caregivers not only about the diseases like Alzheimer's, but how to manage your own stress, how to do self-meditation, how to incorporate exercise and different things into your lifestyle over time so that you can help with all that emotional support and anxiety that builds up as a caregiver.
And I think the key here is that sometimes caregivers don't ask for help. They feel guilty, right? It's my responsibility. She is my mother. I am the oldest daughter. Of course, I have to, that's my job. And when we do that as caregivers, we are neglecting ourselves, and we are really ignoring the fact that we're not superwoman or superman, right? We cannot do it all as much as we want to do it all. And that can have a negative effect on the health and well-being of caregivers. And that's why going to what Roberto was saying, that we incorporate a lot of self-care into our programming. But I also know that it's really that first step. I can't do it all. I need someone to help me. Kim, you talked about having a large family and having other people kind of help you. What can what are some tips or suggestions that you can leave family caregivers on? We have all these services combined, all this help that is available to our community. But if people are not connecting because they are not asking for help, then they're not going to get these wonderful free services. So I'm hoping that maybe there's something that you can tell our caregivers that would motivate them to do that.
I think there's a lot of ways, and you can also, if you don't know where to start, people usually will ask maybe a friend or a family member, but that's maybe not always the best place to start if you really need help right away. And we tell people, call our 800 number, as I mentioned. And another way is to check out our website, and that is www.aging.sandiegocounty.gov. And we have programs and resources for both caregivers and for care recipients. And if you call our call center, they can help with information and assistance, community services, referrals, access to quality community-based healthcare, and social services supports. And oftentimes we find when people call or they're looking, they don't really know what they're looking for until they have a conversation, and really they thought, oh, you're a caregiver. And I'm always surprised at the number of people say, no, I'm just looking for help, or I'm looking, well, no, you are the caregiver, and then maybe reaching out for help. And the same as when you have children and you have others, there's things you need to take a break sometimes, read a book, take a walk, give yourself these opportunities to really rest and rejuvenate, and then maybe use your time to look for how you can get community support. And then if not, and you really don't have that opportunity, ask a neighbor, ask a friend, and use your other faith-based is another good place. Really try to get yourself the resources that you need so that you can continue providing the love and support to the individual in your family that you're caring for.
Yes, thank you so much, Kim, for bringing that up. Again, I just want to stress how fortunate we are to live in San Diego County, where all these services are kind of housed within a small network, but there's so many resources out there for families. Well, that's all the time we have left for this edition of Let's Talk Caregiving. To hear more of our podcasts, follow us on your favorite podcasting platform or visit our website at scrc.care. I want to thank Martha for co-hosting another important discussion, our guest Kim Gallo, and our audience for tuning in. If you're providing support to a loved one, you don't have to do this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. To connect to our programs and services, visit our website at scrc.care or call us at 1-800-827-1008. If you're residing Outside of San Diego and Imperial County, visit caregivercalifornia.org to find the Caregiver Resource Center nearest you. To support our efforts and make a tax-deductible donation, please go to scrc.care and click on the Donate tab. And remember, SCRC is here for you,
Caring for those who care for others.